I found out about my wife's affair. Now I'm setting up a $100,000 divorce payback. I'm Ryan, I'm 38 years old, and for a long time I believed that finding an honest and loyal woman was like finding a unicorn, something everyone talks about but no one really sees. Working as a civil engineer for a large construction company in Boston, I always considered myself a direct and blunt man. My professional life was established, with a salary that provided me with comfort and stability. However, my love life felt like a succession of disappointments. In all my previous relationships, I gave myself completely. I remembered special dates, surprised people with unexpected gifts, I really listened when people spoke to me. Even so, I always ended up hurt. There came a time when I started to believe that all this effort, all these qualities, simply no longer mattered in today's world. It seemed like being a decent, caring person had become a weakness, not a virtue. My cynicism about relationships grew with each new disappointment. It was then, about 5 years ago, that I met Amanda. She was 33 at the time, and our meeting was nothing extraordinary, a casual meeting through a mutual acquaintance. It wasn't one of those cinematic moments, but I remember being drawn to his genuine smile, different from the forced ones we see so often. We ended up talking for hours that night, exchanged numbers, and 3 months later we were officially dating. There was a special energy, a pleasant eagerness to see each other in the first months. We had a real connection, the kind that is hard to find. I always made a point of putting effort into everything we did together. I remember clearly the day I realized I was truly in love. I can even remember the clothes we wore. What started as something casual turned into something deep and meaningful. I finally felt like I had found someone special. Amanda seemed different from the other women I had met. We shared interests such as hiking on ecological trails and discovering new hidden restaurants around the city, but we also maintained our individual spaces and hobbies, which I considered fundamental for a healthy relationship. While I was passionate about classic cars and spent my weekends restoring my '67 Mustang, she showed a polite but unenthusiastic interest, which was perfectly understandable. Amanda, in turn, had a passion for cityscape photography and spent hours capturing unique angles of Boston's architecture. I admired her artistic talent, even though I didn't have the patience to learn the techniques she mastered. These differences gave us things to talk about, things to learn from each other, making our relationship dynamic and interesting. Our careers were quite different, which ended up playing a big role in what happened later. As I mentioned, I worked as a civil engineer, spending most of my days on construction sites, supervising projects and solving practical problems, a job that required constant physical presence. Amanda worked as a digital marketing manager at a technology company, where her performance was measured by campaign and conversion metrics. Initially, she worked in an office in the city center, following traditional business hours. However, after 2 years of relationship, her company implemented a flexible remote work policy, an opportunity she immediately embraced. At first, I viewed this change as a positive one for both of us. More flexibility for her, more time we could potentially spend together, even if it was just sharing the same apartment while she worked. I have always been a great supporter of his career and celebrated all his professional achievements, genuinely rooting for his promotions. We were building something solid, making plans for the future, talking about possibilities that previously seemed distant. Everything seemed perfect. We had a stable relationship, promising careers, and shared dreams. It was as if all the previous disappointments finally made sense, as if all the suffering had been just the necessary path to finding what really mattered. I have always considered myself a good partner in all aspects. I'm not bragging, but I've always been caring, a provider, a protector, someone there through thick and thin, both the good and the challenging. This included being emotionally available, spontaneous, and, yes, dedicated in intimacy too. With Amanda, I felt like I could truly trust, something rare for me after so many negative experiences. In past relationships, there were always lingering doubts, little suspicions that maybe they weren't being completely honest with me. With Amanda, it was different. Not that I considered infidelity impossible, but it wasn't something I was actively concerned about. I genuinely believed we had built something special, something founded on trust and mutual respect. That's why what happened next hit me so hard. The fall is always more painful when you're high. It started subtly. Amanda started acting strange, hard to describe exactly, but she seemed different. I noticed that she was being more reserved with her cell phone, hiding the screen when I approached, answering calls in another room. She was less affectionate, less interested in spending time with me, and often said she was tired, even on weekends when we normally made plans together. At first, I ignored these signs. I figured she was stressed about work, since she was working hard to get a promotion and knew the pressure was building. I kept telling myself not to jump to conclusions, that it was probably nothing serious. I wanted to believe it was just a phase, something temporary that would soon pass when the pressure at work eased. My initial reaction was simply curiosity. I wanted to understand what was happening to her, why she seemed so distant all of a sudden. At that moment, I was completely blind to the bigger picture. But the strange behavior didn't stop. It continued for weeks, with only small glimpses of the Amanda I knew. These moments of normalcy were just enough to keep me hopeful, to make me think that maybe I was overreacting. Yet suspicion continued to grow in the shadows of my mind, feeding on every little detail that I would have previously ignored. Still, I didn't immediately think about betrayal. I considered other possibilities. Maybe she was facing some kind of personal crisis, maybe she was hiding a health problem, something like that. One night we were watching a movie, something we used to do on Saturdays. She seemed completely distracted, constantly checking her cell phone. When I asked about this, he replied that they were work emails, on a Saturday night. This was unusual, even for her. It was at that moment that I started to get really worried, feeling an uneasiness that I couldn't explain, as if something was fundamentally wrong. My worry was slowly turning into something more intense, more disturbing. I ended up talking to my friend Derek about the situation. Derek is a good friend but somewhat cynical, especially about relationships after going through a messy divorce a few years earlier. I trusted Derek, told him everything that was going on, and he just laughed. He said, and I'll never forget this, "Man, if she's a woman, she can cheat on you. No matter how good you are, how much you do for her, they all have it in them." He even mentioned that you could have it all, great job, good looks, amazing personality, but you could never be sure of someone's loyalty. That statement, harsh as it was, really affected me. It completely changed my perspective. Suddenly, every little thing Amanda did seemed suspicious. I went from worried and curious to actively suspecting she was having an affair. I couldn't get Derek's words out of my head. They were like a slow poison, contaminating my every thought about Amanda and our relationship. I decided I could no longer live with this nagging doubt, this constant feeling that something was wrong. I determined to find out what was really going on, following advice I found in online forums about checking a partner's cell phone when cheating is suspected. I planned a special dinner, cooked her favorite dish, shrimp risotto, the one we used to prepare together in happy times. I set the table with candles, trying to create a relaxed and comfortable atmosphere. I wanted her to feel safe, like she could talk to me about anything. I waited for her to get home from work and, after we ate, I brought up the subject. He said he was worried about her, that she was acting different and that he just wanted to know what was going on. So I asked directly, "Are you cheating on me?" She looked shocked, her hands started to shake and she couldn't look me in the eyes. He stuttered, struggled to find the right words. It was painful to watch, honestly. Finally, she denied it. He said he couldn't believe I would even ask that he loved me, that we had been together for 5 years. She got teary-eyed, almost hysterical. It was quite a performance, worthy of an Oscar. But here's the thing, I didn't believe her. Maybe it was Derek's words ringing in my ears, maybe it was my own instinct, but something felt wrong. I expected her to be furious, outraged by the accusation, but that wasn't what happened. She seemed more downcast, like she was just sad that I had suspected. And she accepted my apology too quickly when I apologized for the accusation. That just didn't make sense. So I did something I'm not proud of, but felt I needed to do. I pretended to believe her. I apologized again, said I was just being paranoid, and we went to bed. But I couldn't sleep. It was a strategic move on my part. I knew if I wanted to get to the bottom of this, I needed her to think I trusted her again. He needed her to let her guard down. I knew what I needed to do, but I had to wait for the right moment. It would be a long night. All of this was leading me to what I knew I needed to do. There would be no peace until I found out what was really happening. I thought to myself, if she thinks I'm that stupid, she's in for a surprise. Doubt was slowly eating me up inside, like acid eating away at metal. I waited until I was absolutely sure that Amanda was fast asleep. It was approximately 3:15 a.m. according to my watch. I lay there staring at the ceiling for hours, my heart pounding and feeling physically sick, but I knew I had to do it. Carefully, I got out of bed, took her cell phone from the nightstand, and went to the bathroom. I opened her cell phone and started browsing. First, I went to the photo gallery and scrolled through, nothing incriminating. Then, I went to the messages, and that's when I saw something that caught my attention, a contact called Financial Consulting. Why would Amanda be messaging a financial advisor at all hours of the day and night? I knew immediately it was a fake name, a front. It was so obvious, so juvenile, it almost made me laugh sarcastically. I clicked on the conversation and my world crumbled around me. The messages were from someone named Michael, and they were explicit. Pet names, conversations about missing each other, provocative messages, and even some suggestive photos. Messages like, "I can't stop thinking about your smile," and other more intimate things came from Michael, and Amanda responded with phrases like, "You're making it hard for me to concentrate on work, you know?" There was even a photo of Amanda in some new lingerie she had bought, with the message, "I wish you were here to take this away from me." It was all there, in black and white. They hadn't explicitly said they'd slept together, but the emotional intimacy, the suggestive messages, it was all there. It was an affair, as simple as that, and it had been going on for at least 3 weeks, which corresponded perfectly to the period in which she began acting strangely. As I sat on the bathroom floor reading those messages, I felt like I was having a panic attack. My heart raced, I started hyperventilating, my hands were shaking so much that I could barely hold the cell phone. I wanted to scream, break something, wake her up and confront her right then and there. I even had thoughts of meeting this Michael guy and, well, I won't go into details, but they weren't pretty thoughts. I was heartbroken, devastated, furious, all at the same time. 5 years. 5 years invested in this relationship, and it was all a lie. I kept thinking, how could she do that? Was any of it real? Did she actually love me at some point? It was as if my entire reality had been shattered in an instant. I was relieved, in a way, to have found out relatively early, before we'd gotten married or had kids, but I was also incredibly hurt by the way she went about it, the childish code names, the stupid emojis, the whole situation. I felt like my sanity was slipping away, like I was losing control. I knew I needed to get out of there, breathe a little, figure out what to do next. I spent the next hour documenting everything, taking screenshots, taking notes, making sure I had everything recorded as evidence of what was happening behind my back. After documenting everything, I needed to draw up an action plan. I sat on the bathroom floor and started thinking about everything. I wasn't sure how to proceed. My head was full of confused thoughts, and I was furious. I had a lot of options in mind, the loud, public options, telling all our friends and family, posting everything online for everyone to see, or even handing out flyers at her place of work. And the silent options, leave without saying anything, contact a lawyer, or simply move. I knew I wanted her to feel the pain she had caused me. I wanted her to experience the same suffering. I realized that I had a lot of advantage in this situation. I'm financially stable, I work for a respected company, and I have all the security that comes with that. Amanda, on the other hand, was struggling financially. Digital marketing wasn't as profitable for her as she'd hoped, and she was having trouble meeting her monthly goals. I knew that I was the one who made it possible for her to live in a luxurious apartment in downtown Boston. Without my income, she would have had serious difficulties. This gave me some ideas. I knew one thing for sure, I could move on perfectly fine without her in my life. I was determined to cut all ties with Amanda, but I wanted to do it in a way that she would never forget. The following weeks after discovering the betrayal were hell. It was cold and distant with Amanda. We slept in separate rooms, we barely talked, and when we did, it was short, dry sentences. I couldn't even look at her without feeling a mixture of anger and disgust. I could barely eat, I lost weight quickly, I simply couldn't understand her actions after everything we had built together. One thing I realized during this time, and that I want to share with everyone, is the importance of not rushing into marriage. I'm so thankful Amanda and I weren't officially married. I barely escaped. It just goes to show that you never know someone completely, not until you've lived with them for a long time, seen them at their best and their worst. I now had first-hand experience in this aspect of life. I decided to wait. Our lease was ending in approximately 3 months, and it was in my name. I figured that would be the best time to make my move. This would give me time to plan, organize everything and maximize the impact of my actions. I needed time to find a new apartment, something that fit my budget and was closer to work. I also needed to start gathering moving boxes and contact some friends to help with the move. There was a lot to do, but I had a well-defined plan. Oh, and one more thing: about a month after checking her cell phone, Amanda and Michael slept together. I discovered this later, and honestly, it just made things easier for me. It solidified my decision to leave, removed any lingering doubt or temptation to try to fix things. It was the final nail in the coffin, so to speak. I've heard that people who cheat often lose interest once the forbidden aspect of the affair is over. I have a feeling Amanda and Michael's relationship won't last. It's just a fantasy built on lies and deceit, but that's their problem, not mine. I was starting to pull myself together, with a final plan ready to go. The last month of the contract arrived, and it was time to act. I had been planning this for months, and I was ready. I picked a day when I knew Amanda would be working late. She told me she had an important client dinner or something, which honestly, I didn't even care anymore if it was true or not. It just gave me the opportunity one needed. I had already settled everything with my friends, the same ones who knew the whole story, including Derek, of course. They were more than willing to help. They had been telling me for weeks that I deserved better, that I needed to move on, and that they would be there for me no matter what. Good friends. I'm lucky to have them. Having their support made me feel so much better about my actions. We met at the apartment in the early afternoon. I had already packed most of my things into boxes, clearly labeling them so I knew what was what. We worked quickly and efficiently. These guys were like a well-oiled machine. We loaded the truck with everything that belonged to me, which was honestly about 80% of the stuff in the apartment. Furniture, electronics, kitchen utensils, my clothes, my tools, everything. I wanted to leave her with as little as possible. I wanted her to feel the emptiness, the vacuum that I've been feeling for months. The new apartment was on the south side of Boston, closer to my work, which was a bonus. It was smaller, but it was clean and it was mine. A new beginning. We were able to do the entire move in about 4 hours. It was surprisingly quick considering how much material I had. I remember looking around the apartment before we left. It was almost completely empty. Empty shelves, bare walls, just a few pieces of furniture that Amanda had brought into the relationship. It looked sad, and honestly, that felt good. A strange mix of sadness and anger was building up, knowing that I was actually doing this, but there was also a feeling of release. I was finally free from that charade of a relationship. Before leaving, I did one last thing. I grabbed a piece of paper and wrote a short, simple note: "Goodbye. Enjoy your time with Michael." I debated for a while about what, if anything, to write. I thought about writing a long, angry letter, pouring out all my hurt and frustration, but in the end, I decided that less was more. This message was sufficient, short and to the point. I placed the note on the kitchen counter, right where she would see it when she walked in. I know it's a bit cliché, but it felt right at the time. I considered saying something more sarcastic, but decided against it. That was enough for her to understand that I knew everything. My friends helped me unpack some essentials in the new apartment, but I told them I could handle the rest. I needed time alone to process everything, to get used to my new surroundings. I thanked them again for their help, and they left. I was very grateful to have them in my life at this difficult time. Then came the hard part, the complete disappearance. As soon as Amanda got home and found the note, my phone started ringing off the hook. Calls, texts, messages on every social media platform you can think of. She was panicking, obviously. It went from angry accusations to tearful pleas for forgiveness, all in the space of a few hours. She even tried to contact me through mutual friends, begging them to intervene, but I didn't respond. Not once. I ignored every call, every message, every attempt at contact. This was the core of my revenge, if you can call it that, complete and absolute silence. I wanted her to feel the same confusion, the same uncertainty, the same helplessness that I felt when I discovered her case. It's been 3 weeks since I moved in, and I haven't said a single word to her. In fact, I'm actually enjoying imagining your panic. I'm sure she's going crazy not knowing where I am or what I'm thinking. A few days after I moved in, I received a call from the landlord. He was obviously confused, wondering what was going on. Amanda must have told him some story, but he wanted to hear my side. He contacted me on my cell phone and I told him the truth. I explained everything about the case, about Michael, about how I had moved away because I couldn't live with someone who cheated on me. I told him I obviously wouldn't renew the contract. The owner was surprisingly understanding. He had known me for a few years and I had always been a good tenant, paying my rent on time, never causing any problems. I think he appreciated my honesty at that difficult time. I also told him I was foregoing the security deposit. I didn't even want a penny back. I didn't want Amanda to benefit from my money in any way. I told the landlord to do a full inspection of the apartment and make his own judgment about whether she deserved any of it back. I trusted him to be fair. He had his word that he would make the right choice regarding the destination of the deposit. Then the owner told me something that gave me a strange sense of satisfaction. He said Amanda couldn't afford the apartment on her own. She didn't have a roommate in sight, and her family lived too far away to help. She was facing eviction and was struggling to find a new place to live that fit her current budget. It was a direct consequence of his actions, of his betrayal, and I'm not going to lie, it was good to know. I know some people might think I'm being cruel, that I should feel sorry for Amanda, but honestly, I don't. I gave her my all, I was a good partner, faithful, supportive, and she threw it all away for a cheap adventure. She made her choices and now has to live with the consequences. It's not about the money, or the apartment, or even the things I took. It's about the principle. It's about the pain she caused me, the disrespect she showed. It's about the fact that you can't just treat people like dirt and expect to get away with it. You can't have the best of both worlds. You can't have a loving, committed partner and a secret affair at the same time. The owner carried out the inspection and contacted me, saying that everything was in order and that he would refund my security deposit. I was pleased, and he told me he served Amanda the eviction notice. He was very happy with the way I handled everything. I thanked him again and said I was happy to finally be moving on with my life. People advised me to block her and move on, and that's exactly what I did. However, a month later, Amanda tried to contact me again. She had called me from a blocked number that went straight to voicemail. I checked the message and instantly recognized her voice. I returned the call. Amanda answered and immediately collapsed. She was crying, apologizing profusely, saying she had nowhere to go. His voice was hoarse, as if he had been crying for days. She looked exhausted, defeated. It was obvious that she realized she could no longer deny the affair. The game was over. She kept repeating, I'm sorry, over and over again. He tried to offer explanations, excuses, but they were weak, unconvincing. It just happened, she said. I didn't want it to happen, I was confused. It was pathetic, really. She even tried to appeal to my past feelings by reminding me of all the good times we had shared. Do you still care about me? She asked, her voice breaking. She was desperate, clinging to any hope, trying anything to change my mind. She began to express how uncertain she was about her future, that she didn't know what she would do and stated that she had nowhere to go. I listened to their pleas for a few moments. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, the full impact of what she had done. Then I let out a short, humorless laugh. It was a short, dismissive sound, the kind of laugh that conveys disbelief and contempt. You know, Amanda, I said, it's funny how you spent weeks, maybe months, sneaking around, lying to my face, and now you expect me to feel sorry for you. I paused, letting my words sink in. You made your choices, destroyed what we had, and now you're reaping the consequences, I continued. Then I delivered the final decisive blow. You have Michael, I said, my voice cold and emotionless. Go live with him. And then I hung up. I didn't give her a chance to respond, to argue, to beg. I simply ended the call abruptly mid-sentence, if she even tried to say anything else. Right after I hung up, I went on all my social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, everything, and blocked her too. I eliminated his digital presence from my life as completely as I had erased his physical presence from my apartment. I even considered deleting old photos and messages, but decided to keep them for now, as a reminder of what I've been through and what I've overcome. I sat back and a strange calm enveloped me. I didn't feel a rush of euphoria or a rush of triumph, just a quiet, constant sense of closure. It was as if a weight had been lifted, a burden I had been carrying for months finally released. I started thinking to myself, justifying my actions, not to others, but to myself. I don't know where she'll go, I thought, and I honestly don't care. She made her bed, now she can lie in it. I reinforced my belief that she deserved whatever hardship came her way. He didn't see it as an act of revenge, but as a natural consequence of his choices. She cheated on me, lied to me, and destroyed our relationship. She needed to face the reality of this without me softening the blow. I knew well the pain I went through, the sleepless nights, the constant anxiety, the feeling of being completely worthless. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but I also wouldn't protect Amanda from the consequences of her actions. If she ended up on the street, she deserved it. That was my final thought on the matter, a testament to my complete lack of empathy for her at that moment. A few weeks passed, and I started to feel lighter, as if I was finally freeing myself from the emotional ties that tied me to that failed relationship.